San Francisco 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. Is that right? Niners are favored?
Yeah.
They're favored by 2.5 at Philly?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Niners are favored by 2.5 at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles atop everybody's power rankings because they only have one loss. Going up against the Niners, who had that 3-game losing streak but have looked dominant over these last few weeks. I like that. I think we're getting both teams at the peak of their powers, right? I mean, the Eagles are in the middle of this very difficult stretch of games, of which they've won all of them, right? They've just beaten Dallas, Kansas City, and Buffalo. And they still have San Francisco here to go. And then Seattle? Or is there another? Oh, no, then Dallas again and then Seattle. So they're in the middle of this stretch. But the Niners have just dominated these last couple weeks against good teams, against the Jaguars, against the Seahawks. What are you looking for in this one?
Yeah, the Niners, I think, have replaced Cincinnati as the team where I think that their best is better than anybody else's best. Right, like I think for a while that looked like the Bengals when they were literally a very short while when they came back and you got like 2 games of Joe Burrow playing like Joe Burrow before he got hurt again, and it's like when they go up against good teams, they generally beat them, and they beat this 49ers team. But since that point, once the 49ers have gotten all their stars healthy, once Trent Williams is back in the lineup, when Debo is back in the lineup, when McCaffrey's there, when Ayuk is there, the guy you talked about taking the step from good to great, with Brock Purdy playing better than he's played before and actually adding big plays to the offense that itself is a cheat code, I don't think anyone can hang with the 49ers if they play their best football. So they replaced the Bengals as that team for me. And then Philadelphia is interesting because they're on this run where they keep winning these games, but we're now 11 games into the season where we haven't hit full throttle yet for the Eagles. And I don't know if we're ever going to hit full throttle for the Eagles or if this Eagles team is just going to be slightly worse than last year, even if the record says they're better or the record ends up the same or whatever. But there's this lingering feeling that they're not where they were, right? It's not quite where it was, and yet maybe the rest of the NFL isn't either, so they keep winning. But I think that's why the 49ers are favorite. Like, they're the team that looks like they're at the level that Philadelphia or Kansas City or even the 49ers were last year before injuries. And the Eagles, the record may be there, but they don't seem like they're playing at that level.
Let me try to back you up a little bit here because we're friends.
Okay.
I'm going to back up your point and
I
try
see.
to help you out. And paint the
that
picture
kind of
here.
backing up.
Well, I'm on Premium Stats 2.0,
Yeah.
all part of your PFF Plus package. And I was looking at the Niners page and I'm looking at the Eagles page. So I'm going to look at overall team grade, and I'll admit our overall team grades for the season they're not like the best proxy for team. I would look at EPA type stuff and other advanced metrics. These are just kind of like rolled up player grades. But if just at a glance, when you're looking at the Niners team page, as a team, their overall grade for games, they have a 92.5 grade against Dallas when they just dominated them, right? A 92 grade against Jacksonville when they dominated them. Bucks, 86. Seahawks last week, 87.5. There's an 87.9 against the Giants. Those are all high 80s, low 90s grades. That shows dominance as a team. So when you go to the Eagles page, Sam, nothing is dominant. It's actually funny. It just paints an interesting picture that's describing what you're saying. It's like the Eagles are absolutely doing just enough to win every single week and in tough games. As I mentioned, Dallas by 5, Chiefs by 4, Bills by 3 in overtime. But their game grades, they've never had a game grade over 81. That was way back in week 2 against the Vikings. Their last few weeks, 77, 70, 73, 73, 75. It's like unbelievably consistent. So again, that just kind of like popped off the page at me as I was looking at it, because I think it backs up what we're seeing. The Eagles they're finding ways to win. Jalen Hurts is on this incredible run, and the Eagles on this incredible run when they're down 10, it doesn't matter. And I think that's the Eagles' superpower, Sam, is they can play the situation. They situational football. They can play from behind if they need to. They can play with a lead. They can scheme it up defensively to shut down offenses like the Chiefs or the Dolphins. They can win in all these different ways, but they're not on a play-for-play basis as dominant as they were last year. for whatever reason. Is it because of a more difficult schedule? Whatever it might be. They hit these weird lulls, I think, on offense, where they just have some nothing plays or nothing drives. But they're certainly capable at any given time with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts still playing very well. Their run game, getting DeAndre Swift getting on the edge with his speed the last few weeks has been a huge catalyst for them getting back on track. So I'm not trying to disparage the Eagles. I'm just trying to describe, I think, their level of play. So they're going up against, like you said, a team that dominates games in the Niners.
I think a huge part of this is, part of it I think is Jalen Hurts' injury. He's dealing with a knee injury. He's not 100%. I'm sure that's affecting his play at times, if not all the time, and that's part of why they're not quite firing on all cylinders. I think part of it is also this general league-wide trend of defenses winning, right? For the first time in years, defense is actually having more success against offenses generally. Now, the Eagles counter that to a degree by the push play being unstoppable, right? So even when defenses are winning, they still have this extra cheat code of being able to extend drives anytime they get to, third or fourth and short and keep things going. So it's sort of this weird dynamic that not a lot of other teams can bring to the table. But I think that's probably part of why this doesn't look quite as good as it did a year ago. By contrast, the 49ers are one of 2 or 3 teams in the NFL that simply aren't really being affected by this league-wide trend of defense winning. Like, they are still, Brock Purdy is averaging 9.4 yards per attempt. Like, that's the one offense where defense is not winning. Defense may be fighting back, but the 49ers don't care. They're still ahead. So I think, honestly, what we might be seeing is the Eagles are simply in the same bucket as everybody else, which is a percentage has been taken off the top of this offense, and the 49ers aren't.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it such a great matchup. Of course, it's a rematch of the NFC Championship last year, which was not a good football game, Sam.
No.
Brock Purdy hurt almost immediately. Josh
Turns
Johnson
out quarterbacks are quite important.
What is?
Turns out quarterbacks are quite important.
Yeah. So I can't remember. I honestly tuned out in the second half. Christian McCaffrey was just taking direct snaps or something.
Yeah. He was basically playing quarterback-ish.
It was horrendous.
They answered. They literally did. They did the thing. They answered the question that I'm always asking, what happens if the emergency QB comes in? Turns out it's a disaster. It's terrible. Even when the emergency QB is a guy as versatile as Christian McCaffrey, it's still non-functional in any way, shape, or form. It's worse than the Kendall Hinton offense, which is a guy that theoretically could play quarterback, and no, it's just not. Doesn't work.
Yeah. So it was ugly last year. I think. Playing in Philly is a huge factor here. If you look at Brock Purdy's splits or the Niners home road splits, those are a factor. Again, there's a lot of teams that are far better at home than they are on the road. Dallas being one of those statistically, but San Francisco has elements of that as well. But Niners being favored against an Eagle. So how much do you think the emotional aspect of this for the Eagles playing these tough games? They went from beating Dallas at the last second.
You can only go to the well so many times, right?
To Monday Night Football against the Chiefs, where they had to make a 10-point comeback, to last Sunday going to overtime against the Bills, another 10-point comeback. We mentioned a guy like Jordan Davis playing 64 snaps or whatever it was, a career high by about 15 snaps. How much can they handle this against a great team?
Meanwhile, since going on that 3-win or 3-loss skid, the 49ers have won comfortably for 3 straight weeks and have emotional baggage attached to this game of, they want revenge for the NFC Championship game. Now, look,
didn't Deebo Samuel, he called James Bradbury trash or something like that?
Oh, Deebo's been sounding off since that game that, all about the 49ers constantly. A.J. Brown set Eagles Nation onto trolling Deebo Samuel this week. Said, go nuts. You have my blessing. Go and antagonize him. So, yeah, it's a charged game. So here's a data point that I think illustrates interestingly sort of where these two offenses are. Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts have very, very close PFF grades now. Purdy's actually risen to meet Jalen Hurts in terms of overall performance, 81.8 versus 83.0. Passer rating under pressure is very, very similar as well, 82.7 versus 86.4. Essentially, when the play breaks down, they're doing very similar work, right? When it's ad-libbed, when it's on them, as opposed to the offense, it's actually similar. Big time throw rate is basically identical. Purdy's is actually higher. Where they massively diverge, though, passer rating when kept clean, when everything's good, when everything's in rhythm, when it's just the offense. Brock Purdy's passer rating when kept clean is 127.3.
I was going to say like 140 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is quote unquote just a 98.9, right? So there's like 30 points of passer rating is being added to this 49ers offense when things go well that aren't there for the Eagles. And it's not there because the quarterback is playing worse, because they're, broadly speaking, playing the same. It's there because that 49ers offense, whether it's the skill position players, whether it's Shanahan, whether it's the combination of all of them together, it's just working at a level that the Eagles offense isn't.
Is this the game? We talked yesterday, we had a great question about the team building strategy of the Niners, and basically they don't have a good pass blocking grade. I mean, they have a 51.8 pass blocking grade as a team for a very effective offense that you've just described. And we said, yeah, it's the scheme protects those offensive linemen. They can overcome the pass blocking. Brock Purdy is actually excellent at handling pressure and maneuvering the pocket, a step up from what Jimmy Garoppolo was. Or is this the game where the Eagles, and they're always a top 5 pass rushing team. They are again this year, 81 pass rush grade as a team. They're not as good as they were last year, but again, Hassan Reddick going up against Colton McKivitz, Jalen Carter on the interior. We know that they have enough pass rushers. Is this actually the game that exploits this weakness for the 49ers? Could be.
Maybe. Having said that, the Eagles' pass rush is not what it's been for the previous seasons.
No, it's fifth instead of first or second.
Right. That's another element that's down a little bit versus previous years. Now, Hassan Reddick specifically is an interesting
that matchup.
Potential matchup winner. Reddick should spend basically no time whatsoever over Trent Williams. Like, this is another one of those matchups where I don't understand why you would put him there ever. If he goes up against Colton McKivitz every single play, remember, Reddick is the guy that hurt Brock Purdy last time. Now, there's no point in spending any time into what that play call was, what the blocking assignment was, et cetera, but like Reddick versus McKivitz is a big matchup in Philadelphia's favor that could scupper that offense to a degree.
I've got one more matchup to watch, then we'll make our picks.
Uh-huh.
The Eagles' run defense. Number 1 run defense grade in the NFL. They were outstanding last week. Remember on the review show I mentioned the Bills had one good drive basically running the football other than Josh Allen. One good drive. Now that drive did coincide with Zach Cunningham being injured and off the field. He's questionable with a hamstring injury. Not expecting him to play necessarily. But Jordan Davis was very good up front. Jalen Carter was very good up front. Their run defense against the Niners, who always can run the ball effectively enough, especially with McCaffrey. The Eagles have a couple advantages on the defensive side of the ball. Run defense, the ability to rush the passer that can maybe give this Niners offense some problems here. So keep an eye on that matchup as well. All right, man. Niners favored by 2.5 on the road here. Where are you going?
I'm buying San Francisco. I think
really
they are better.
They're better than the Eagles.
Yeah, when everybody's healthy, I think they're better, and everybody's healthy right now.
I think the home field advantage is a factor. Can we get a weather update? Let's check Philly weather.
55 and overcast.
It's nothing. Basically nothing.
No.
It's always overcast. It's always sunny in Philly. I'm taking the Eagles. I'm taking the Eagles as home underdogs. I think they can go back. I think the Eagles, I'm on record saying I think Dallas will get them at home. I think the Eagles' next loss comes to the Cowboys.